Mommy, can you tell me
I'm not your mummy to start off with.
Mommy.
I'm not your mummy to start off with.
Art 101 with Mr. Burgher.
Welcome back to Art 101 with me, Mr. Burgher, professional artist and educator attempting to bring you the best in art and historical content.
Hi, this is my painting that I made.
As always, I appreciate the likes, the shares, the subscribes, comments, the whole gamut. I like it.
And you're helping make it happen.
Okay. So lately I've been thinking a lot about YouTube and what I've been doing on here, and really, when you think about YouTube itself, it's kind of a rebirth of an idea that was put forth by a comedian by the name of Tom Green. And so I really want to dig a little bit deeper into the Renaissance and what that was all about.
Are you amazed about that?
Just to quickly clarify, when Tom Green was getting his start through his public access TV show and later his MTV television show,
you are watching Cable 10, Aurora, Illinois Community Access Channel.
that body of work went on to very much influence the creators and the individuals that were really starting to create content for the video platform YouTube. In a very similar way, the Renaissance was very much shaped by an influence of the artwork that was being created during the Greek and Roman time periods. These classic ideas went on to shape and create a major influence on what would become the Renaissance as we know it today.
I read this on my phone 2 weeks ago. The Renaissance movement occurred after the Black Plague. Everybody was forced to self-isolate, and then what happened? Oh, the greatest shift in thinking and art and literature in the history of the world.
So you might be asking yourself a question.
No, I'm not going to tell you. It's because none of your damn business.
Really?
So what is the meaning of Renaissance?
To answer that directly, the Renaissance literally means rebirth. It is a rebirth of the old ideas that originated from the classic time periods. Again, those are the time periods of the Greeks and the Romans.
You're funnier when you're drunk.
Now, not only is the Renaissance a rebirth of these classic ideas, it is also a rebirth of the realism that had declined during the time of the Gothic era, when craftsmanship and ability to create these perfect forms had declined or stylistically changed. But this realistic rendering of the natural world was very important.
Could you please stop the camera?
It's okay. It's with me.
And yet another area of rebirth is in the area of science. Scientific methods and theories became very popular at this time. In previous times, people just accepted things for, that's just the way God made things, or that's just the way it is.
It's the way they go. It's the way they go. It's the way they go.
That's the way they do.
But during the Renaissance, people wanted a better understanding of themselves and the world around them. This also led to them wanting to make improvements on technologies. And as Tom noted a moment ago, this may have also been an impact based upon pandemics that had affected their world and their way of thinking about things. During this Renaissance time period, we start to see what will become the modern world. Much of the rebirth of ideas is an undercurrent to the idea of humanism. Humanism is the philosophy that human issues are more important than religious problems.
A thing like that shows no intelligence at all.
Although the Renaissance is a notable time period in the visual arts, many other popular forms of artists would come from the Renaissance. Socially, we see Johannes Gutenberg, who invented the printing press along with movable type. This would allow writers like Dante, Machiavelli, and even William Shakespeare. They honed their ideas as the Renaissance evolved, and these writers have remained a source of inspiration and study to this day. If we were to set the Renaissance to music, we would likely hear Dufresne or Des Prez. However, what we know of the Renaissance will always be centered on the visual arts.
That's not really what I read.
One of the interesting ideas of the Renaissance comes from Leon Alberti, It was his belief that it was of great importance for the art to tell a story and be understood by the masses. It was very popular practice for the late Gothic and Renaissance artists to encode their artworks with symbols that were widely understood by the masses so people could get a deeper sense of the story, especially at a time when most people were illiterate. As an example, you can check out my video on the Arnolfini portrait for a deeper insight into that. However, not attempting to digress, as we look at the Renaissance, it is common practice to divide the artists into regional groups. There are artists from the Northern Renaissance and there are artists from the Italian Renaissance. There are some distinctions between the two groups. Generally, the Northern Renaissance is less aware of the classical influence. They have less religious subjects. They are a little bit less interested in science. They're more apt to put in more details. There is more of a focus into the landscape. There is more of a pioneering type focus on the oil paint media. They utilize more distinguished symbols in their art. And in general, I think it is fair that they are less aware of the rebirth mentality.
All of them out there, they're doing it.
There are some names that are synonymous with the Renaissance. Let's look at a few of those.
Now, there may be Art 101 videos on some of these artists, so check out the list of all of the Art 101 videos to get more in-depth details on specific artists. However, let's dive into a couple of these big names from the Renaissance. Filippo Brunelleschi was a goldsmith, sculptor, architect, archaeologist, and inventor who had literally changed the landscape through his architectural innovations like we would find after he was commissioned to create the Duomo on the Cathedral of Florence. He was an innovator who developed the one-point perspective techniques and would pass those along to his students like Donatello Bardi.
I'm so stupid!
He was one of the greatest sculptors of all time and spent much of his artistic energy developing sculptures in the Italian Renaissance. In his depiction of David, he would create the first large-scale freestanding nudes since the classic times and truly embrace the idea of the rebirth. As previously noted, Jan van Eyck also embraced this idea.
Mom, look, it's a message from Don Corleone.
As he would develop paintings with an incredible amount of technical skill and attention to human proportion. He would help make innovations in oil paint media that would influence artists for generations.
And if we want to spread butter on people, damn it!
Another name synonymous with the Renaissance is Leonardo da Vinci. He was the oldest of the three great masters of the Italian Renaissance, and he was trained in many things and felt that artists should be the most educated people on the planet because there is so much that they have to encompass in their work to make it great, and he embraced that learning. He was trained in painting, sculpture, botany, ornithology, engineering, anatomy, geology, physics, architecture, city planning, and music, just to name a few areas of his study. And although he created a very small body of work, his name is still synonymous with the Renaissance man. So too is his major rival of the time period, Michelangelo Buonarroti.
He's a man of his art.
The second born of the three great Renaissance artists of the Italian Renaissance. He is arguably the greatest artist of all time, and he practiced as a sculptor, poet, architect, painter, and inventor. Not only did he work in these areas, but he excelled in every single one. His true passion was in sculpture, and we see evidence of that in his works like the 13-foot 5-inch rendition of David.
Yeah, there it is.
And the youngest of the three great Italian Renaissance artists was Raphael Sanzio. He was a royal painter who was very highly polished in the area of fresco painting. This very laid-back young man lived a short life, but his influence is still felt in his paintings like his School of Athens, which really embraces the idea of this rebirth in the Renaissance, fusing the Renaissance time period with the thinkers and innovators of the Greco-Roman time periods.
The art's still on the wall, though.
Albrecht Dürer would become known as the Leonardo of the North and was arguably the best Northern Renaissance artist during this time period. He was a master of many media as he would blend Germanic art traditions with the habits of the Italians. He is very much looked up to as an artist today, but also he was an artist that was admired by his contemporaries, and most notably Erasmus and Raphael Sanzio.
He's a weird guy.
Another Northern Renaissance artist that would place more focus on the landscape, the seasonal panoramas, and the parables of peasant life was Peter Bruegel the Elder.
What's this?
That is Hunters in the Snow, one of his best known works, but what is really unique about this piece is that it would show a diverging trend from what was popular, in that most artists would create works that focused on the upper crust of society, where Bruegel focused a lot of his attention on the common person and showed the way that peasants and really the masses lived during the Renaissance.
I'm just giving you the facts, okay?
This is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the Renaissance and the artists that come from that time period.
Get the hell out of here.
Oh, come on!
A lot of information in there, but man, do I love that story.
See, there's always places where you're not supposed to go, places where you're not supposed to be.